Today's Rolston Hockey exclusive, I am joined by the owner and director of strength and conditioning at Elite Training Systems, also known as ETS. His company has worked directly with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, the Oshawa Generals of the OHL. He spent 5 years as the head and strength coach for the Toronto Marlies of the AHL before becoming the head and strength coach for the Anaheim Ducks of the NHL. He's one of the most educated people I've ever come across in this field, and I was personally lucky enough to be trained underneath him for about 3 years, which some of those were relatively tough. But appreciate you coming on, man. Mark Fitzgerald, how you doing?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to some stories. I just had one of our former teammates, or one of your former teammates, reach out to me a couple days ago. The Bulldozer. There was some interesting conversations.
Yep, and I know Jerry, I believe, still works with you. He comes up to Toronto in the summertime, and you guys have a good group of guys.
He lives there for the summer. He's been great, man. Well, you know Jerry. Jerry's Jerry, so it's he's always the bright spot in the gym, and never a bad look on his face. Always smiling, literally.
Well, whereabouts are you right now? Everything going on with the virus. How are you and your family doing?
We're good, thank you. Like we were just chatting about my wife, and we have 3 kids. My son is 8. My boy-girl twins are just about to turn 6 on May 3rd. So we left California after my obligations were kind of finished there, and we always wanted to move back to Canada. So the gyms are located in Ontario, which is not too far from you guys, but we decided to go to the west coast of Canada. I have some opportunities out here, and going to be taking on some consulting role with Okanagan Hockey Group, which is like we were discussing, a company that has academies all over Canada, and there's a few of them internationally as well. So pretty exciting for me. Some good people that I've known for a long time that I get to work with more closely, and I get to kind of expand what ETS is, and I'm going to be hosting some training camps out here for a lot of NHL guys that live out here. So should be fun, and try to develop my business a little bit more. And we're specifically in Kelowna, BC, so it's really very nice in Canada.
We'll get into ETS in a little bit, but what's your background growing up? I believe you were in football, right, when you were younger, growing up, and then just talk about basically you as a person, when you were younger, and how you got into this side of the sport.
Well, yeah, you know what, I was lucky. I had 2 older brothers growing up, so they were quite a bit older than me. My middle brother, who I'm still very close with, is 6 years older than me, and my oldest brother is 8 years older. So needless to say, there was a lot of beatings that happened at their hands. So I think that was kind of a first and foremost of an attitude or a way to carry yourself, so that you protect yourself in those situations. I'm definitely grateful for that. But I grew up playing hockey, just like every Canadian child for the most part. But I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't very good, and that I should probably look at some other sports. And my middle brother, who I mentioned, got me into football because he played. And, obviously a big part of football is training, so he kind of introduced me to the training side of it. And it was pretty, it's pretty amazing. I still remember some of the first times he took me to our little recreation center gym, and, basically just dropped weights on me until I was able to move them. And, that was kind of my entrance into, hey, this may be something that I can, gravitate towards, or maybe I can do a little bit better than I did in hockey. And I started playing football, and played football in high school, and then got a chance to play in the Canadian university. And that's when training just, was still pretty, we didn't have a strength coach as a school. It was still in its infancy. So I didn't really think about, this as a job, kind of what I do now, even that it would even be a possibility as a job, to be honest. So I was going to go and be a police officer, hopefully, or a firefighter or something like that. That's what both my brothers are. One of them's a captain in the fire department. The other one's a forensic detective. So it was kind of those career pathways were looking more promising just because of, hey, my brothers have been through it, whatever. But I wanted to go play football, so I did that, which was different from what they did, and it just opened up my eyes to the potential to do this as a job, and I think started training with football guys. And when I came back home to Whitby, Ontario, where I'm from, I was supply teaching at the time because, again, there wasn't a whole lot of jobs going around, but I was supply teaching, coaching football. And, you realize that football is not the sport that it is in Michigan,
Right.
or any parts of the U.S. really. It's growing and it's grown, but it's just not what it is. So I started working with some hockey players, and Whitby is 130,000 people, and there's probably 20 hockey rinks. It's ridiculous, So there's quite a lineage of players that come from Whitby as well. All the jerseys all over the place and whatever. So I eventually started training some hockey players, and it just kind of the floodgates opened because I guess I was bringing something a little bit different in terms of the training. Although looking back, it wasn't really that different. It was just what I knew, So I didn't have guys do a lot of bike riding. We sprinted, because that's what, in my opinion, what athletes need to do, and especially in football. But again, now looking back, it's so important in hockey, and there's so many tie-ins to, skating acceleration and sprinting acceleration, So it's, I was fortunate that I came from the background that I did because it gave me more opportunities because I was looking at it differently. I didn't want guys riding bikes like that. I wanted them sprinting and pushing sleds and doing stuff that they weren't typically used to in my area anyways. And how small the hockey world is. And we talked about him a little bit, but one of my first client, big NHL client was Adam Foote, and name on the hometown sign. It was kind of I didn't really have to do anything much in terms to get guys to train with me. It was his word, and working with a guy like that was super. I was probably too green at the time to really take him as a client because he was pretty broken, and it probably took someone who was a lot smarter than me, but he gave me an opportunity. And again, any of the opportunities that he did help me with or what have you, I feel like I did a good job. I'm a hardworking guy. It's you put in those situations, I'm going to do my best to get the most out of it and try to, help my career or help the athlete that I'm working with, whatever the case may be. And then from there, it was, more networking. I hooked up with a guy named David Branch, who you're a big fan of. And
I am.
yeah, and he opened some doors for me as well, which is great because he got me a role with the league that I was kind of overseeing all the Ontario Hockey League teams with. I was traveling around doing some nutrition stuff for teams that needed it, providing templates for training and what have you. I've been a part of Under Armour's family for a long time, and there was a lot of cohesion there at the time because Under Armour started building out these combines and what have you. And so it just worked out really well in my favor. And a lot of opportunities came to me, through those different channels of the hockey world. And eventually it led to an interview with the Leafs, and I know that's kind of a short way to put it, but really realistically, that's what it was. Someone had put my name forward as someone, as they were looking for somebody for the Marlies position. And I said, hey, why not? I don't think I'm qualified to do it. I don't think I have, but sorry, not that I didn't think I was qualified, but I knew my experience was good because I spent my summers with guys like Foote, and
Right.
we had a big population of players. So I was comfortable in that environment. I think that was, made it easy to go into the Leaf interview and, be confident about what I can do, not knowing what I don't know, and, just cut myself out there. And, that's, I think I got hired the same day because it was, they kind of threw me into the fire during the interview. Your boy Belza, he, the guys were coming in for a practice, and he just started introducing me to guys, and, it's just like, yeah, all right, this is pretty cool. And then he's like, okay, go work with that guy. I think it was Mike Van Ryan. You remember that name?
I do.
The D-man, super nice guy. And I don't know what he was dealing with at the time, but he wasn't playing. So I trained him and, just had a normal workout with him. And I guess he gave me some good feedback to Bells. And I was just comfortable, and I think that comes from being in that hockey world and being in the locker room and being around guys. It's just, you know the you know how to gauge the room, and I think that's a huge skill for coaches that unfortunately a lot of the young ones tend to miss a little bit. They think it's more about technology and X's and O's, and that stuff is important, but if you can't be in the room and be yourself, then you're gonna have a tough time coaching anybody.
Absolutely. So I think it was 2009-10 when I met you when I was with the Marlies, and you were the head strength and conditioning coach there. And um, I mean, I'll never forget. We had a lot of workouts together, and you know, so we would always do conditioning, and I could always, or not every day, but depending on the week, the schedule, we would have conditioning workouts, whether that was biking, sprints, whatever it may be. And I can remember, you were always adamant about it was called conditioning and not cardio.
Yes.
I mean, I always remember that. But one of my memories was, I believe it was my first year. I I wasn't playing in the playoffs, and there was a group of probably 7 or 8 of us that throughout the playoffs, basically we had to come in. The team would get there at 9:15 for the day, but our group had to come in at 6 a.m. Our workout started at 6:15. We were on the ice at 7:30 to 8:30, and we had to be out of the rink at 9 before basically the team got there. And I think one mentally that can be pretty tough, and we did that for about 2.5 months. But I think you really start to grow a relationship with the people you're working with. A guy like you that you could see what we needed, where our mindset was, and you go through that while your team's playing, they're going on in the playoffs, and you're supposed to be cheering them on and wanting them to do well. Meanwhile, we're getting buried into the ground as we're skating every day and training. Which in the long run, I look back at that and I think it helped me,
Yeah.
mentally, how to handle and prepare, and things are thrown at you in certain ways. You just go about your business. Um, so then in 2000, let's see, 15, 16, you end up becoming the head strength coach for the Anaheim Ducks. Talk about that transition, more so from the player standpoint of, how guys went about their business. In the American League, guys are right there. They're a call up away, or, maybe it's, the team's over, the budget or the cap, and this guy can't be up or down. So there's a lot of moving parts. And then, with the NHL guys, you're at the best league in the world. Talk about the difference in maybe the players, but also the training with their schedules. And a lot of guys have what they've done for their entire career. Some don't want to change that. They have their own program, and trying to work with the balance of that.
Yeah, well, I think there's, well, number one, I think the guy behind that Black Aces schedule that you spoke to, he did that for a reason, and I'm sure he would smile if he heard you say that. Dallas Eakins, getting you guys to go to build some resiliency,
Right.
and I think that was a message to us too, and it does make sense as long as there's guardrails. But yeah,
Real quick, I can remember coming in, and I forget what it was, and what, I'm sure everybody has those days where you got to find that extra effort, and maybe it's not there after getting drilled into the ground 4 weeks in a row. And I forget who said it, but they were like, I don't know if I want to do this today or whatnot. And you would always just say, well, I got a couple buddies that work down at the mill. I'm sure I can find you a job. I mean, I must have heard that line a numerous amount of times. I'll never forget that. But
I probably wore that one out a little bit, but it was probably David Brohl who was asking. But it was like, to be honest, I was trying to, probably in not the best way, but trying to make you guys realize how fortunate you were.
Yeah.
And, that, and not just my own experience, I was fortunate too to be there, but I know people at the time that were your age that had, pretty non-fantastic jobs, and I think I I knew you knew what I was trying to do, and you try to put some humor into it too. But there was mornings where I was like, I'm going to call right now and get us over there because I know Dallas will let me do it. He'll let me take you to the steel mill for the day, 100%. But I came close some days, but it was trying to frame a reference,
Yeah,
and say, hey, this sucks, and you're getting pushed physically and mentally, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're a professional hockey player, and it's a pretty good position to be in.
absolutely.
But yeah, when you talk about the transition AHL to NHL, I think firstly, I was very fortunate again to be on the staff with the Marlies, who was there, with Paul Ayotte, who I'm still good friends with, who's now the head guy for the Leafs on the medical side. And, he kind of took me in terms of as a younger strength coach without any professional experience in the team setting. And he let me right in. I would sit, if you can remember, I would sit in the treatment room while guys were getting treatment. I would sit there and ask questions, and we'd have dialogue around, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean when you get out into the gym? Like that kind of cohesion between strength and conditioning and the medical staff is pretty rare, especially with the experience that I have now. And I just thought it was normal. I thought it was normal. Like, why wouldn't it be? Like, we have to be on the same page. But unfortunately, it's not, and I think I was very lucky there to have a guy like Paul, and I can't remember some of the other guys' names, but I mean, him and I spent so much time together, probably why we're still good friends now. And, the coaches with Dallas Eakins, Steve Spott, like Derek King, Gordo, like you talk about these guys are like, they're fantastic people.
Absolutely.
Plus they have like an incredible amount of hockey knowledge and experience, and any situation that would have come up, it's like, okay, who can I ask? Because they all know the answer, or they all have insight into, what could be. And I know I was so fortunate. And even on the management side, like, how do you think you get a job in hockey? Well, Brian Burke was my GM for the time that I was in Toronto, and he was also the GM in Anaheim for a long time. Dave Nonis,
Right.
GM in Anaheim, GM in Toronto. So, I was fortunate. I was on the good end of the hockey world being small. So my name got thrown around, and all of a sudden I get a phone call, right? So, and going back to the transition of leagues, it's the AHL is all development, and I think that's why, number one, why I enjoyed it is because I knew I could be a little bit more of a hard ass. I knew I could push a little bit more. So as a strength coach, I mean, that's what I want to be in the gym, right? I want to be on the ice with you guys, which I did, which was fun. But I want to be able to push the buttons and try to help you guys get better, try to build that resiliency in you, because I think that was part of my job. Transition that to the NHL, it's very different in terms of how the players perceive someone like me, and I knew going in, because I was comfortable in that role, my job was to look out for the best interest of the players. And yes, I was hired by the team and whatever, but realistically, the way that I looked at it is, I got to make sure that, number one, I gain their trust, and I gain their trust through being honest with them, giving them the answers that I have, saying no to the answers that I don't, but utilizing a network of professionals and whatever to get those answers eventually, and just that underlying trust of, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure that you stay healthy all year. I'm here to push you when I need to. I'm here to, give you a pat on the back when you need one, or, have a conversation in my office quietly if you need one, like my, my goal always, in even Toronto, Anaheim, doesn't matter where, is to make the gym the best room in the rink.
Right.
It's that hybrid. It's a very fortunate position, because you get to be the place where, you can just come and be yourself, and you can come and just talk, and you go into the medical room, it's like, yeah,
Right.
if you say something hurts too much, are you going to draw negative attention? Are you going to get called to, something or other for being on the table too much, and all that dumb stuff that happens. And then if you're in the dressing room, it's the sport coach, right? It's, how am I carrying myself? Am I doing the right things? And am I being judged? Whatever. And there's not too many other places in the rink that are like the gym. Whereas, guys can come in there and they're like, and you could see it a lot of the time, especially in Anaheim, where guys would come into the room and just be like, oh, finally a place where I can talk to Fitzy, I can talk to our assistant Chris, and it's a good environment. These guys are here for me. Music's going, guys are moving. Like there's a cultural piece that's set from day one that's happening. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to kiss your ass.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that you have everything you need to excel, and I'm going to push you when I need to push. And like I said before, but I think that's the biggest difference is the the maturity maybe, or the players are a little more comfortable in terms, and I don't mean that in a bad way, they're a little more comfortable in knowing what they need, or at least partially what they need, and then now they're looking for some answers, or they're looking to gain the edge, or whatever you want to call it, right? And I think that's whereas the AHL is just they're absorb, like, how can I get to that? How do I get to the NHL? How do I get to the NHL? And it's like, okay, you got to go through these steps. You got to do this stuff. You got to master these things, or else you're never going to get there, right? So I think both really fun areas to work in, but AHL is definitely more of that stepping stone, that development piece where we're training a lot more. We're looking at nutrition a lot more. I still remember, talk about a long time ago, the Beretta Farms team dinner. I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
My wife and I were sitting at the table with some of the guys who didn't bring girlfriends, and your boy Nas was one of them. And you're sitting there, we're just chatting or whatever, and he picks up a piece of fruit, or sorry, he picks up an avocado, and he looks at my wife and he's like, "Hey, what is this?" And she looks at me, she's like, "Is he just messing around?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so. I honestly don't think he knows what that is." So that was kind of, those were things that we did at that level. It was still so much teaching. It wasn't, I liked that aspect of it, because you got to drill down deeper into guys and to, try to figure out some more problems. Whereas in the NHL, it's like, you have to be a lot more reactive. And I think it hinders our job a little bit sometimes, because you're not able to do what's best. You just have to do what will work now,
Right.
and then worry about the rest later when you can. When you have another snapshot of time to do it. And that's that's probably the biggest difference. I know it's a super long-winded answer, but it's not an easy question to answer. There's a lot of moving parts.
Throughout an AHL season, NHL season, it wasn't really something that I learned, or I focused on, even at the U.S. national program at that time. Rolling out wasn't, it was a thing, but it was more just grab a stretch, and the recovery was have a shake. It was definitely something we did, but now it is, as important as the actual training that you're doing. Talk about how injury prevention is, it's incredibly important. I can remember the stuff that we were doing, our warm-ups were, if not as long sometimes as the actual workout itself. And that was just, preparing our body in a sense of, getting ready for the workout and then the cool down. And, it was a learning curve for a lot of us. And especially as how the sport has developed, and especially the training has developed, and the access kids have these days. Kids are starting to learn what I personally did at a way younger age. But you helped me rehab back from, I had a sports hernia surgery. I can remember it was a 12 to 14 week injury, a lot of one-on-one time, and just the importance of, you don't just get into the room and do your workout and then you leave for the day. I can remember you saying all the time that part of being an athlete, it's a full-time job. And as with nutrition, you were a guy who taught me, eating habits and eating right. When you show up to the rink and you leave, you're not done for the day. You have to approach it as this is your job, not just as a hockey player. But people clock into their work from 9 to 5. They're able to go home. That's how you taught me the mindset of, you show up to the rink. Well, you don't just leave at 1 o'clock and you're done or you're finished. You carry that throughout the day. But You know, the injury prevention stuff that you've worked on, that you through your company and the players that you've worked with. I mean, how important is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's changed so much. I mean, you talk about what we did when you were playing early in your career, and then I look at what I did or didn't do when I was playing football. Like we didn't your warm up was your first few sets.
Right.
It's probably why I can't move as well as I want to now. Um, but I think now it's become, and a big part of it is because of the way that hockey is played now, a lot faster, a lot more in general, a lot more volume, and there we can get into this too, but it's the model of hockey is 12 months a year, just like a lot of other sports. But the problem with hockey is that, we played on ice with huge skates on our feet, so the damage, the damage that can be done from repetitive use, skating, improper skating mechanics, just too much time posturally in hockey is very detrimental, so a lot of those longer warm-ups and cool downs and what have you is you're trying to fight against, the other 23 hours of the day. You're trying to fight against all the, postural inefficiencies that come from playing too much hockey, so the amount of actual, training that we are doing currently is become whittled down because, well, if you don't get that mobility work in prior to, if you don't get, grease joints, if you don't get moving in a way that's going to allow you to move well for the training session, then the training session then becomes negative,
Right.
And I look at myself now as a stress manager, and then trying to teach that message of, stress is stress, good or bad.
Yep.
So we want to be able to elicit a certain amount of stress over the amount or over the training week, month, whatever cycle we're in, whatever time of year, right? We're constantly managing stress, and we know how much the ice takes, we know how much the gym takes, and then it's like, okay, we have to account for other lifestyle stresses, getting married, children, whatever, right? So if you're adding more to that stress pot of more skating, more skills coaches, more this, more that, like you're really, it's starting to be very counterproductive.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So to be honest, those are, even with some of my Olympic female hockey players now, is because their schedule is so crazy for the last probably 2 years, with games all over the place. Then that one league got shut down, so that caused more problems. And I had some of the top players in the leagues that were just burnt, and they can't understand why they are. I'm like, well, you haven't slept in your own bed in 3 weeks. You've been on 18 hours a week of travel time. Like, that stress. Like, I'm changing your training program because I'm accounting for that other stress that you're not. You can't. Sleeping on an airplane is not good sleep. No matter what. Like, so I can't have you do a heavy deadlift session on Monday after a Sunday 7-hour flight. It's just not gonna. It's not gonna feel good.
Right.
You can get up and you can move around. We'll do a little bit of body work, whatever, but we're not gonna load on more stress than is needed. So I think the nature of it now is all that preparatory stuff, and some of it is, all of it is on a case by case basis too. If I have someone who's got a relatively high training age, and by training age I mean like someone who's been within a structured program 12 months at a time, so you would have a training age of probably 7 or 8,
Right.
total. And that's really good. That means that you can adapt to those stressors a little bit differently, right? Like, it really speaks to the individuality of the athlete and what they've been exposed to, right? So you can't just paint a broad stroke. Now, certain age groups, 12 to 14-year-olds, yeah, a little bit easier to paint that broad stroke because they're all kind of going through those hormonal changes and all that kind of stuff at relatively the same time. So that's a little bit easier of a model. But when you get to the NHL, it's like, okay, my last year there, we had a bunch of guys, older guys who were married, or my first year there, sorry. So they were kind of like almost my age, and we all had kids kind of the same age. And so I knew what they were going through. I knew that when we got off the plane or in the door at 4 a.m. and their kids woke them up at 6 as well, just like mine did. And I just have to make my way to the rink and, kind of look half awake for the morning skate, but they got to play.
Right.
It's like, wow, I better make sure that we're taking care of our sleep. I better make sure that I'm, providing more sleep hygiene information, supplementation, whatever it is to combat that, and I think that's where, you go back to the warm-ups and the preparation stuff. You can't, because the way the sport is played now and most other sports, you can't just jump into, putting the bar on your back or, just grabbing the trap bar anymore. You have to, 20 minutes at the start, 20 minutes at the end. It means you got probably 25, 30 minutes in the middle, and that's, if you can't get the work that you need done in that time, it's probably time to reevaluate what you are actually doing and why, and I think there should never be a time limit or a certain amount of time that you need, but realistically, if you're not in and out in an hour and change, then you're probably not hitting all the boxes that you need to, for the most part.
Right. I mean, I can remember, when we first started working together, my first, our summer programs that you would send to us, it's always changing, and I'm not exactly sure where it is now with, your beliefs and what you have, your players and athletes doing. But I could remember the first 2 weeks of our summer program was all mobility for the most part, band, body weight. I mean, you weren't really touching weights because it was, I can remember you saying, like, you have to wake your body up. You come off of a long season, you take a week or two here just completely off, and then it's time to start moving. And, I can remember by setting yourself up through the first week or two of just mobility and rolling out and stretching and band work, by the time that first week of weight started, I mean, you were ready to go. You felt good. Yeah. It wasn't, you do that for a week and then the following week, you got some pain or some aches, why is this happening? But you've prepared your body for, what's going to happen through the next, 8 to 10 weeks of the summer training program. Something I wanted to ask you about was, today development is changing so much with kids and the access they have. And, my kid needs to do this. He needs to play here. He needs to train there. At the Rolston Academy, we have, great people that we work with for strength and conditioning. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on basically, the year-round hockey player that's 10 years old, that, he's going to play in the spring team. He's going to train on ice and off ice all summer. Growing up, I finished hockey in April and started back up in September, and I swam all summer. I wasn't a year-round hockey player. I was a year-round athlete, but I had, different elements in different sports, which I think personally helped, but I also think your body needs rest. And you touched on that a little bit earlier, but I'm just curious to hear what you think of development for kids when it comes to their body, today.
Yeah, no, and I think you touched on a couple good things. And I've lectured on this before to, a room full of 300 hockey coaches, and my presentation was all about long-term athletic development, and it's not something that's specific to hockey, although people in Canada would like to think that. But this talks more about the sport model in general, how to promote athleticism. And I think that's very lost on a lot of sport bodies now, which is really unfortunate because, as an example, my son, he's 8, and my goal with him is, number one, not to be a crazy sport parent, which I'm not, which I'm happy. But, on the, in one way I am, because I have a plan with him, and the plan isn't professional sports. Right. That could be a result of him, dedicating himself. Sure. Probably not, but whatever. I don't care about that. But the plan is exposure. It's exposure to different things, to different sports, to different philosophies that will feed his athleticism. And, as an 8-year-old, he's a good little athlete, better than I ever was, that's for sure. And, if I were to show you clips of him playing touch football where he just runs around everybody a few times a game, it's incredible. And I don't know where he got that from, because you've seen me skate and whatever, that's not me. But for him, he just gets it, and I remember watching him play, and this was 2 years ago, and he was playing against kids that were a year or two older than him. So he was one of the youngest kids on the team. And I saw him get the ball, and he went over to the one side, kind of got caught up, and all of a sudden I see him booting around back, like running up this sideline where I was standing. And I'm like, wow, it's going to be a good little run. Everybody's cheering, whatever. And you got these 3 kids like converging on him from across the field. I'm like, oh, he's going to get caught here, right? Stops up, they all fall over, walks in for a touchdown. Nice. And I'm just like, I went up to him afterwards, and my buddy, that was great, great job, you guys won. And I said, how did you know how to do that? He's like, oh, I don't know. They were coming over. I just stopped and kept going. I'm like, perfect. I'm never going to understand it anyway, so just don't even worry about me, But I feel like that was a part and parcel because of exposure. He plays soccer. He plays hockey. He plays football. He swims like crazy. He does wrestling. He did some martial arts, does some rock climbing, yeah, we're running around like crazy, but it's exposure. He gets exposed to all these things, and they all feed each other. And, the problem that I have with especially hockey is you get a lot of these hockey parents that they want to have the best 7-year-old in the world. And it's like, that's not the goal. My goal is to make sure that my kid loves sports and is athletic, and that he can, as a life skill, he can, learn how to be part of a team, learn how to push himself, learn how to be a leader. That's something it's important in our family. And at the end of the day, if he wants to pursue something, then he's going to have a pretty good athletic toolbox to draw from. Right. It's not to be the best 8-year-old in the state of California. But that's what a lot of people are striving for. Like, yeah, my kid's on the ice, 8 hours a week. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That kid's going to hate hockey if he doesn't already. Right. And you hear parents that they had to drag their kid kicking and screaming to practice. And I'm just like, my kid doesn't want to go to practice. He's not going. Right. Now, we put some guardrails around that, right? It's like, hey, if you're just looking to get out of something, not a chance. Right. My son came to me maybe 2-3 times throughout the season. They practiced Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Not always, but depending on when they played and stuff. Maybe 3 times from September until February. That I don't feel like going tonight. I'm just tired, and I just don't feel like going. No problem, buddy. What do you want to do instead? Let's go play basketball in the driveway. Done. Right? Like, now he plays basketball too. And like, you start to see your kid's personality develop as well. And if you pay attention to that, like I do anyways, you can really, this sounds kind of sneaky, but you can get more out of the kid. You know what I mean? Like, if you know what's starting to drive him and how he's looking at situations, and, you get kids that want to please their parents and do all those things. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I know that there's a little bit of that with my son. I also know that he's a very driven kid. He's super competitive, which I've layered in from a young age. But so I know how to kind of play with those things around sports, right? And I'm not fooling him. It's just, you know what buttons to press to kind of get him excited or get him feeling good about himself or his team or his participation in the sport, whatever. And that's arming him for his future. Again, not in a professional level. I don't care about that, but maybe, I don't know, right? Like, but you see other parents that are just coddling too much, and their kid gets tripped and they're crying like they've been stabbed in the neck on the field. It's like, I told my son, I'm like, if you get hurt, hey, I'll come and help you out, but don't be going down just for the sake of going down because you want my attention. And again, what does that turn into? He comes off the field, Dad, you see that? I got knocked over there. I got a big bruise on my shin. I'm like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, didn't even hurt. Right. That's the mentality that I want, because I think that's what's going to set him up for success, and kind of treating your 10-year-old like an NHL player is probably not a good idea at that age, because you're probably going to end up raising a kid that will expect things for him and will expect people to do X, Y, and Z for him. Like, again, that's my own personal thought, but I don't feel like that's, you know, putting your child in a good position to be successful is, you know, looking at other people to do stuff for them, right?
Do you worry about kids? I mean, it's when I was that age, it was like I said, you played during the season three or so times a week. Come spring, it was baseball, swimming, whatever you were into, or just not playing and being a kid. But obviously, a lot is changing, and some for the better, some for the worse. However you want to look at it. I mean, I think it's great. Kids now have the option to play spring hockey, or they want to be on that team, or if they want to train in the summer. There's ways to go about it. But do you worry about kids getting burnt out in today's hockey?
Oh, I see it all the time. I mean, especially at ETS, or one of our main location is at Iroquois Park. I'm sure you played there.
Yep.
Pads of ice. Anytime after 3 o'clock from September until April, that place is jarred with people playing hockey and whatever. And you see the kids, and it's usually the ones that are AAA all the way up, and they get to their draft year, which is minor midget, which is 15 years old for the CHL. And you see the pressure that starts to mount for those kids, and then you see the handful or the majority that don't get drafted, and it's like their worlds have ended. In their eyes, their world is ended. And you see it every year on Twitter. I mean, I've even done it where, hey, today means nothing, like the draft day or whatever, but it does. Unfortunately, it does mean a lot to those kids. And when they don't get drafted and they don't get whatever, you see kids just quit hockey altogether, or just go and play house league, which is great too. But most of the time they just quit. And at 15, 16 years old, why they're quitting and going and doing whatever the hell else they're doing. It's not really productive what they're going to be doing. And it's a shame, because, you're pushing your child down a path that really doesn't have a whole lot of upside unless you make the NHL.
Right.
And even if you do make the NHL, you still have to enjoy what you do. Like, you still have to love it. And the guys that don't, I'll give you credit. I mean, you were always one of those guys where, as I got a little grumpier when I was coaching, I would say there's a handful of guys on our team, and I was talking about the Marlies at the time. I don't know what year it was, not that it matters, but when you drop a puck in front of them, they'll do anything to get the puck from you. I said, Those are the guys that I want on our team. Ryan Hamilton, is another one of those guys who would literally do anything he had to do to get that puck. And I think if you do it the right way, whatever way that is per individual, you get somebody who's hungry, who enjoys what they're doing, and who wants to compete. If you don't, you get somebody who's got all the talent, who's got all the other things, but they're just there. And I've seen at the NHL level, it's like, how do you not get excited? This is what you do for your living, and it is a job. I'm not taking anything away from that. I know it's a job more than ever now, but you still better enjoy it. Like, I love to coach. There's a lot of parts of it that aren't fun, especially recently with closing down the gyms, laying people off. Like, it's hard, right? But at the end of the day, we do a couple coaching calls a week now with colleagues of mine in professional sports or other trainers or whatever, and I can see all my guys as I'm sitting there talking just like this with you, is that they're all engaged. They all love it. They all still want to coach so badly. And I'm like, okay, we're good. Like, everybody's good, because that is still present, and you were always one of those guys. And so was Jerry and Hammy and I can't remember everybody, but where you drop that puck, you will do anything to get the puck. If you can keep that within your young athlete's mindset, I think you're doing a good job. And I think you're establishing some sort of balance rhythm in terms of their activities, and I think you have to look for that. If kids are getting complacent, if kids are getting, tired and not wanting to participate, there should be a huge red flag that goes up, and, hey, this is maybe something that you should address.
I think at all levels of the game, training has evolved so much, and there's certain things that guys need, players need, things of that nature. But at all levels, I think it's important to miss the game in a sense. Like, you
Yes.
take a little bit of time off, whatever time that may be that works best, but to mentally wrap your mind around it. And then you start getting that itch for, I can't wait to get back in the gym. I can't wait to get back on the ice. And, that helps throughout an entire season, because at the end of the season, you're exhausted, and, you finish up, you get some time off, and then it's, a week goes by after 72 games plus playoffs, 9 months, whatever it may be. You take 1 week off, you're like, oh, I can't wait to take a few weeks off. By day 4, you're already like, so when were we going to start that first, day back up of training? And, and I think that's important. And you learn that at a young age, or if that's taken away from you at a young age, then it's just a year round thing, and you're in the swing of it. And like you said, you want to have that, that almost aggressive nature of, I can't wait to get back to, you know, your almost sanctuary of what made me comfortable was being at the rink, and,
Yeah.
trying to push myself to that level. But with that, talk about ETS a little bit. So you guys you started in Whitby, and
Mm.
you guys have grown a bit, and, just the training focus that you guys have.
Yeah, you know what? I'm again very fortunate that I have an incredible team of people around me that continue to operate when I'm really not there a whole lot. Um, but also partners of mine that have helped with on the business side and kind of guided me along the way, which is again, I'm very fortunate to have had that happen and continue to happen. Um, ETS is it's a gym business. It's not a very fun business a lot of the time because you're competing with these big box gyms and CrossFit and all these other places. And I think one thing that I know comes first for us is coaching, and really focusing on big picture, long-term athletic development. So I never do any advertising. I never do anything, like that. I'm again lucky that the clients that we do have tell other people. They tell other hockey guys. We got people like Jerry who, live in our area for the summertime. We got guys from the NFL who are doing that as well. And I think it speaks to our coaching and our, our the way that we look at the details of what we do. And I think it's a massive piece of it. And it's, focusing on, our sell isn't, hey, come to us for one summer, you'll do this, this, and that. It's let us have your kid for the next 5 to 7 years, and we're going to teach them how to train, and we're going to take them through injuries, ups and downs, seasons, off seasons. We're part of the child's development. That's how I see it. And I think that's why we've been, quote unquote, successful
Yep.
up until this point, and that's what I want to keep doing. And that's always the message. Every year I kind of do a theme for our business. And this year it was coaching, culture, and community, and I think those are huge areas of focus for us. Obviously coaching is first and foremost because that's what we do, and, we have, I could give you a program to do. I could sell you, and we have a training app, and those are all great. And there's a lot of other good products out there too. But my value is me in the gym. You can't replace that, right? Just like Joey Garland's value is Joey in the gym.
Right.
That's irreplaceable. When you're a good coach, you have that where you can relate with guys, where you can, you know, get beyond the bullshit. You can get beyond, hey, how you doing stuff. You can get a little bit deeper and understand how, what makes someone tick, and how you can push and pull them, and how you can watch out for them as a coach. And I think that's what I'm probably most proud of is having other coaches and professionals that work with me, for me, however you want to say it, that take the same amount of pride in that. And we've grown. We have a location now within a big soccer community, or a big soccer organization in Whitby. So we take care of all their athletes. There's like 9,000 kids in the organization. It's pretty cool. 7,000 square foot facility, which is nice. They kind of
Awesome.
included us in the bubble, which is pretty cool. And then we're still expanding up at the university. That's where I first started. When I was still working with Toronto, we had a little storage closet there, which wasn't very much fun, but Bale still complains about it, but whatever, we made it through. So we have a space there, and I was doing some teaching and stuff before I left. That was kind of my next plan. So we're still heavily involved there, and they just keep adding varsity teams every year. So we're looking at hopefully expanding up there and doing some other cool stuff with the university. But really tied in with our community, which is pretty cool. And it's exciting to kind of see it grow. And now I'm going to get a chance to grow it out here in Kelowna as well, with a massive hockey market, and one that I think is a good fit for ETS and what we bring and what have you, and having the partners that we do out here. I think it's going to it's going to go well.
Lastly, do you ever want to get back into the professional aspect of, I know you have a lot going on, but do you ever think about getting back into the NHL, AHL, or whatever level that may be? But personally, is that something that you think about at all, or are you more so right now at this time of your life with kids and your business and growing that?
Yeah, you know what? I love my time with the teams, but I tried to get out of it when I left Toronto. I resigned when I left Toronto, and not for any negative reason, but the twins were born that year, and we just had a lot going on, and a year later I got the phone call from Anaheim, and I said, not really interested. But then I asked my wife about California, so that changed. So, but no, I think I enjoy being away from the team a little bit more. I like, you had Rico on
Yep.
a couple of months ago. He's one of my personal guys, and I think I'm more interested in having fewer guys or athletes or clients or whatever, and going deeper with each one of them. I think that I get way more enjoyment out of that. And there's aspects of the team that side of it that I really love as well. But, we stayed in California this year, and I was home. I was home for probably the first time in 10 years, and when I worked for Toronto, I would leave my house at, between 4 and 4:30 in the morning to get on the highway to do the groceries so I could have breakfast with the team, work out, and then you guys would start coming in. I'd get back to my gym in Whitby around 1 or 2 o'clock. I'd work until 6, 7, 8, depending on the day, get home and go to bed. I wouldn't even see my kid go to bed, so there was that. And then moving to California, NHL schedule, never home, so this past year I never missed a hockey game. I rarely missed a sporting event. And I still traveled, I still spoke, whatever, but I was in control of it, so I could schedule it around events. I could schedule it for the most part, to what appealed to me. And that kind of woke me up a little bit. And I'm ashamed that it took me that long to figure out what is actually important is the 3 people that live under my roof, and making sure that they have someone in their life that can, guide them and help them or whatever. And I can still get to do what I get to do that, makes me tick, is coach people. And it doesn't have to be in that environment, and
Absolutely.
realistically, I think too, it's way more enjoyable on the private side, because you do get to do things outside of the scope of the team. Like you're again, like I spoke to before, the reactiveness of the team because of the schedule and the way that it is, it handcuffs you a lot. Like, here's what we should be doing, but we can't do that because of all these other factors. And the private side is like, hey, we're doing this, let's do it right now. Like I enjoy that part too. I want to be proactive. I think you remember too, I'm constantly education courses, and whether I'm speaking or I'm just going to listen, like that's a big part of what I do. Right. So I want to be on the cutting edge and making sure that I'm paying attention to what's happening, so that, guys like you can come to me and say, hey, what do you think of this method? And, is it valuable? And I can give you my opinion on it without saying like, oh, what's that? And then maybe I lose some trust from you or whatever. Right. So I think that's, I've had some opportunities to go back to the team side, even last summer I did, but there wasn't anything that was really that would have been better than the experience that I had. When I got back with a team, I think it just, I don't know. I think things happen for a reason sometimes, and this was definitely something that needed to happen.
Well, I mean, I can't thank you enough for, speaking with you and catching up. You've always been a guy that is, very educated, a lot of knowledge in your field. And, I know many guys, not just myself, speak very highly of, you as a person, and, as well as a strength coach, a mentor, and, just a guy in the, not just hockey world, but, strength lifting world, whatever you want to call it, business world. But like you said, I mean, you've done meetings, you've done interviews, you've done conferences where you're speaking or you're there learning. You're always absorbing, and that's something I was thankful to work and train under you for a few years. And thanks again for coming on, Fitzy.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the kind words, dude, and I wish you nothing but success with this venture. I think it's going to go well.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy, take care.